Amara stepped out of her mother's old car, clutching the strap of her backpack tightly. Her heart was pounding as she stared at the red brick building in front of her. Willow Creek High School. It wasn't just any school. It was a place where everything felt unfamiliar. She had spent most of her life in a big city, surrounded by skyscrapers and noisy streets. But now, after her father got a new job, her family had moved to this tiny town with tree-lined roads and quiet neighborhoods. Everything here seemed slower, smaller, quieter, and yet Amara couldn't shake off the feeling that something about this place would test her. As she walked toward the entrance, Amara noticed how different everyone looked compared to her old school. Some kids wore cowboy boots and flannel shirts, while others sported jerseys or oversized hoodies. Everyone seemed to know each other, laughing and chatting like they'd been friends forever. Amara stuck out like a sore thumb, not only because she was new, but also because of the way she carried herself. She stood tall, with dark braids cascading down her back and a determined look in her brown eyes. People glanced at her curiously, whispering behind their hands. But what caught Amara's attention more than anything else was a group of 4 students standing near the main doors. They weren't hard to miss. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered boy with a football jacket, was holding court, his booming laugh echoing across the courtyard. His name, she would later learn, was Marcus. He had a commanding presence, almost, like he owned the school. Surrounding him were 3 others who laughed at every word he said, nodding along like loyal followers. Amara watched as Marcus casually shoved a smaller student out of his path, sending the boy stumbling backward. No one said a word. Instead, students quickly moved aside, creating space for Marcus and his crew to pass through. Amara frowned. She'd seen bullies before. They existed everywhere. But there was something particularly cruel about the way these guys operated. They didn't just pick on people. They thrived on making others feel powerless. When it was finally her turn to enter the building, Amara took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy double doors. Inside, the hallways buzzed with activity. Students rushed between lockers, calling out greetings or comparing notes about homework. Amara clutched her schedule tighter, trying to figure out where her homeroom class was located. As she turned a corner, she nearly collided with someone, a boy carrying a stack of books so high he could barely see over them. He stumbled, dropping half the pile onto the floor. "Oh no," he muttered under his breath, bending down to gather the scattered papers. Amara hesitated for a moment before kneeling beside him. "Here, let me help," she offered, picking up a notebook and handing it to him. "Thanks," the boy mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Up close, Amara noticed how nervous he seemed. His light brown hair was slightly messy, and his glasses kept slipping down his nose. There was a vulnerability about him that made her instinctively want to protect him. "I'm Amara," she said softly, offering a small smile. "Ethan," he replied, barely audible. Before she could say anything else, the warning bell rang, signaling the start of class. Ethan quickly stood up, stuffing the remaining papers into his bag. "I should go," he said hurriedly, hurrying down the hallway without looking back. Amara watched him disappear into the crowd, her mind racing. Something about Ethan intrigued her. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, quietly, almost invisibly, or maybe it was the flicker of sadness she'd seen in his eyes. Whatever it was, she knew she wanted to understand him better. Later that morning, during homeroom, Amara found herself seated near Ethan again. This time, she studied him more closely. While other students chatted excitedly about their weekends or passed notes, Ethan sat silently, staring out the window. Occasionally, he scribbled something in his notebook, though Amara couldn't tell if it was actual work or just doodles. Every so often, someone would glance in his direction, snicker, or whisper something to their neighbor. Ethan pretended not to notice, but Amara could see the tension in his shoulders. It didn't take long for her to piece things together. By lunchtime, she had learned from a few classmates that Ethan was considered the weakest kid in school. Not because he lacked intelligence, he was actually top of his class, but because he refused to fight back when bullied. Marcus and his gang loved targeting him, using him as their punching bag whenever they needed entertainment. Most students avoided Ethan, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. Others simply ignored him, pretending he didn't exist. Amara couldn't believe what she was hearing. Back in her old school, standing up to bullies was second nature to her. She had always been the type to speak up when something wasn't right. Moving to Willow Creek hadn't changed that part of her. If anything, seeing how scared everyone was here only fueled her determination to make a difference. And as she watched Ethan sit alone at a far corner of the cafeteria, poking at his untouched sandwich, she knew exactly where she needed to start. For the rest of the day, Amara kept an eye on Ethan. During gym class, she saw Marcus trip him during a game of dodgeball, causing Ethan to fall flat on his face. The entire room erupted in laughter except for Amara. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay calm. This wasn't the time or place to confront anyone, not yet. But as she helped Ethan up, brushing dirt off his shirt, she whispered, "Don't worry, things are going to change." Ethan looked at her, confused but grateful. For the first time since arriving at Willow Creek, Amara felt a spark of purpose. She didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. She wasn't going to let Marcus and his gang continue terrorizing innocent students. Not while she was around, and little did she know her actions would set off a chain reaction that would transform not only Ethan's life, but the entire school. The next day at Willow Creek High School started much like the first. Amara walked into the building with her head held high, ignoring the curious stares and whispers that followed her every move. She wasn't here to fit in or make friends, at least not yet. Her focus was on something bigger. Ethan. Something about him tugged at her heartstrings. Maybe it was the way he tried so hard to blend into the background, as if hoping no one would notice him. Or maybe it was the quiet sadness in his eyes, a sadness she recognized because she'd seen it in others before. Whatever it was, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan needed someone to stand by him, and she had already decided that someone would be her. During lunch, Amara positioned herself strategically near the cafeteria doors, watching the scene unfold. As expected, Marcus and his gang claimed their usual spot at the center table, laughing loudly and shoving each other playfully. Around them, students hurried past, keeping their heads down to avoid drawing attention. But then came Ethan, carrying his tray carefully, trying his best to stay invisible. Unfortunately for him, invisibility wasn't an option when you were surrounded by bullies. It happened quickly. Ethan tripped over someone's foot, whether accidental or deliberate, Amara couldn't tell, and dropped his tray. Food spilled everywhere, splattering onto the floor and his clothes. The room erupted in laughter, but Marcus took it a step further. He grabbed Ethan by the collar of his shirt, yanking him closer. "Clumsy loser," Marcus sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why don't you watch where you're going?" Ethan froze, his face turning bright red. He mumbled an apology, his voice barely audible over the noise. Marcus let go of him with a shove, sending Ethan stumbling backward. The laughter grew, louder, more cruel. Amara clenched her fists under the table, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to jump up right then and there to march over and confront Marcus, but she forced herself to wait. Timing mattered, and this wasn't the moment. After what felt like forever, the bell finally rang, signaling the end of lunch. Students scattered, leaving Ethan alone to clean up the mess. Amara approached him cautiously, grabbing a napkin from a nearby table. "Here," she said softly, handing it to him. "Thanks," Ethan replied, still staring at the ground. His hands trembled as he wiped food off his jeans. "You shouldn't have to put up with that," Amara said firmly, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Ethan shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "It's fine. I'm used to it." Amara frowned. "No, it's not fine. No one deserves to be treated like that." Ethan didn't respond, but the flicker of hope in his eyes told Amara she was getting through to him. For now, that was enough. Later that afternoon, during gym class, Amara got her chance to act. Dodgeball was the game of the day, and Marcus wasted no time targeting Ethan. Every throw seemed aimed directly at him, forcing Ethan to dodge frantically while the rest of the class cheered. It was clear Marcus wasn't playing fair. He was using the game as an excuse to humiliate Ethan even further. Amara gritted her teeth, watching as another ball sailed toward Ethan, hitting him square in the chest. Ethan stumbled backward, landing hard on the gym floor. Laughter filled the room, but Marcus wasn't done. He picked up another ball, winding up for another throw. That's when Amara stepped in. "Hey!" she shouted, positioning herself between Marcus and Ethan. The entire gym went silent, all eyes turning to her. Marcus smirked, lowering the ball slightly. "What do you want, new girl?" he asked, his tone dripping with mockery. "I want you to leave him alone," Amara shot back, her voice steady despite the knot of nerves in her stomach. Marcus laughed, glancing at his friends for approval. "Or what? You gonna stop me?" Amara didn't hesitate. She caught the ball midair as Marcus threw it, spinning around and hurling it straight at his chest. The impact knocked him backward, earning gasps from the crowd. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Marcus looked stunned, though. He quickly masked it with anger. "What's your problem?" Marcus growled, stepping closer to her. "My problem is you," Amara replied, meeting his glare without flinching. "You think you're tough because you pick on people smaller than you? Newsflash, you're not tough. You're just a coward." Marcus opened his mouth to retort, but before he could say anything, Coach Miller blew his whistle, breaking up the confrontation. "All right, break it up," he barked, waving both teams back to their sides. "That's enough for today." As the class dispersed, Marcus shot Amara a venomous glare, promising silently that this wasn't over. But Amara didn't care. She turned to Ethan, who was still sitting on the floor, staring at her in awe. "Are you okay?" she asked, offering him a hand. Ethan hesitated before taking it, pulling himself to his feet. "Why did you do that?" he asked quietly. "Because no one should have to deal with jerks like him," Amara replied simply. "And because I meant what I said, you deserve better." For the first time since she'd met him, Ethan smiled. A real, genuine smile. It was small, but it lit up his entire face. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Over the next few days, Amara made it her mission to stick close to Ethan. She sat with him at lunch, introduced him to a few friendly classmates, and encouraged him to join group activities. At first, Ethan resisted, claiming he preferred being alone, but Amara refused to give up. Slowly but surely, he began opening up to her, sharing bits and pieces of his life. One afternoon after school, Amara found Ethan sitting on a bench outside, sketching in a notebook. Curious, she sat down beside him. "What are you drawing?" she asked. Ethan hesitated before showing her. It was a detailed pencil sketch of a tree, its branches stretching toward the sky. "It's just something I do to relax," he admitted, his cheeks flushing slightly. "It's amazing," Amara said honestly. "You're really talented." Ethan looked surprised. "Thanks. Not many people notice." "Well, I notice," Amara said with a grin. "And I think you should show off your work more often." Ethan chuckled nervously, but there was a newfound confidence in his posture. Spending time with Amara was changing him, not overnight, but gradually. He was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Meanwhile, Marcus hadn't forgotten about Amara. He watched her closely, seething with frustration. Who did this new girl think she was, waltzing into his school and challenging him? He couldn't let her win. That would mean losing control, and Marcus prided himself on always being in charge. So he devised a plan, one that would remind Amara and everyone else of exactly who ran Willow Creek High. But Amara wasn't afraid. If anything, Marcus's hostility only strengthened her resolve. She knew standing up to bullies wasn't easy, but she also knew it was worth it. And as long as Ethan stood beside her, she was ready to face whatever came next. Little did either of them know, their battle against Marcus was far from over. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough to keep going. Over the next few days, Amara and Ethan grew closer. It wasn't an instant friendship. Ethan was still hesitant to open up fully. But there was a shift in the way he interacted with her. He no longer avoided eye contact or mumbled his words when she spoke to him. Instead, he began sharing small details about his life, like how he loved drawing because it helped him escape from the chaos around him. Amara listened intently, asking questions and encouraging him to talk more. She could see the weight lifting off his shoulders little by little. One afternoon after school, they found themselves sitting on the same bench where Amara had discovered Ethan's sketchbook. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the campus. Ethan was working on another drawing, a portrait this time, and Amara watched as his pencil moved effortlessly across the page. "You're really good at this," she said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Have you ever thought about showing your work to anyone?" Ethan paused, glancing at her nervously. "Not really. I mean, what if people don't like it? Or worse, what if they laugh?" Amara tilted her head, studying him thoughtfully. "Why do you care so much about what other people think? Especially people like Marcus?" Ethan sighed, setting his notebook aside. "Because it's easier than standing up to them," he admitted quietly. "If I just let them say whatever they want, maybe they'll leave me alone eventually. But they won't," Amara countered gently. "People like Marcus thrive on fear. The more you let them push you around, the more power you give them." Ethan frowned, looking down at his hands. "I know you're right, but what am I supposed to do? Fight back? That's not who I am." "You don't have to fight back the way they expect," Amara explained. "Standing up for yourself doesn't mean yelling or throwing punches. Sometimes, all it takes is refusing to let their words hurt you." Ethan looked skeptical. "And how do I do that?" "Practice," Amara said with a smile. "Start small. When someone says something rude, don't react. Just walk away, or better yet, respond with kindness. It drives bullies crazy when you don't play into their game." Ethan nodded slowly, considering her advice. "I guess it's worth a try." "Exactly," Amara encouraged. "And remember, you're not alone anymore. I've got your back." Her words seemed to reassure him, and for the first time Ethan smiled without hesitation. It was a small victory, but Amara knew it was important. Confidence wasn't built overnight. It took time, patience, and support. And she was determined to be the person Ethan needed to believe in himself. As the days passed, Amara continued to guide Ethan through subtle changes. During lunch, she encouraged him to sit at tables with other students instead of hiding in the corner. At first, Ethan resisted, worried about being judged or ridiculed, but Amara reminded him that most people were too focused on themselves to notice him anyway. Slowly, he started testing the waters, joining conversations, or simply nodding along when others talked. To his surprise, some classmates actually welcomed him, complimenting his artwork or asking about his hobbies. But while Ethan was making progress, Marcus hadn't forgotten about Amara or her interference. Every time their paths crossed in the hallway, Marcus shot her icy glares, silently promising revenge. His gang followed suit, snickering whenever Amara passed by. It was clear they viewed her as a threat, someone who dared to challenge their dominance over the school. And Marcus didn't take threats lightly. Despite the tension, Amara refused to let it intimidate her. If anything, it only fueled her determination to stand up against bullying. She began noticing patterns in Marcus's behavior, the way he targeted specific students, the times and places where he felt safest operating, and the cracks in his tough guy facade. Beneath all the bravado, Marcus was insecure, relying on fear to maintain control. Once Amara understood that, she realized his power wasn't as unshakable as he wanted everyone to believe. One day during gym class, Amara decided to test her theory. Marcus was once again using dodgeball as an excuse to torment Ethan, aiming every throw directly at him. This time, however, Amara didn't wait for Marcus to make the first move. She grabbed a ball, spun around, and threw it straight at Marcus's chest, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to catch him off guard. The entire class fell silent, watching as Marcus stumbled backward, stunned. For a moment, he looked genuinely surprised, as if he couldn't believe someone had dared to retaliate. Then anger flashed across his face and he turned to confront her. "What's your problem?" Marcus growled, stepping closer. My problem is you, Amara replied calmly, meeting his glare without flinching. You think you're untouchable, but you're not. You're just a bully who hides behind his friends because deep down you're scared. Marcus clenched his fists, clearly itching to lash out. But before he could respond, Coach Miller blew his whistle, ordering everyone back to their teams. As the class resumed, Marcus shot Amara one last venomous glare before turning away. Though he tried to act unaffected, Amara could tell her words had hit a nerve. After gym class, Amara pulled Ethan aside. You saw what happened, right? She asked. Ethan nodded, looking uneasy. Yeah, but aren't you worried he'll come after you? He might, Amara admitted. But that's exactly what he wants, to scare us into backing down. And I'm not giving him that satisfaction. Ethan hesitated, then asked, What should we do? We stay strong, Amara said firmly. Together. Bullies like Marcus feed off fear. If we show him we're not afraid, he'll lose his power. Ethan swallowed hard but nodded. Okay, I'll try. That's all I ask, Amara said with a reassuring smile. Baby steps, remember? Over the weekend, Amara came up with a plan. She knew Marcus wouldn't stop targeting Ethan anytime soon, so she decided to prepare for the worst. On Monday morning, she approached a few classmates who had witnessed Marcus's bullying firsthand. These weren't close friends. They were just ordinary students tired of living in fear. Amara appealed to their sense of justice, explaining how Marcus's behavior affected everyone, not just his victims. To her relief, several students agreed to help. One girl offered to record any incidents on her phone, while a boy promised to alert teachers if things escalated. Another group volunteered to create flyers promoting anti-bullying awareness, planning to distribute them throughout the school. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. When Monday rolled around, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't fighting alone anymore. She had allies. And though Marcus remained a looming presence, she knew she was ready to face whatever came next. As she walked into the cafeteria that afternoon, she spotted Ethan sitting at a table with two other students. They were laughing at something Ethan had said, and for the first time he looked completely at ease. Amara smiled to herself, feeling a surge of pride. Change was happening, slowly, surely, and it was beautiful. But even as hope spread, Amara knew the battle wasn't over. Marcus was still out there plotting his next move, and when the time came, Amara would be ready to strike back, with courage, unity, and unwavering determination. The tension between Amara and Marcus reached its boiling point on a chilly Thursday afternoon. Word had spread quickly about Amara's repeated defiance of Marcus, and while some students admired her bravery, others warned her not to push her luck. Marcus, meanwhile, was furious. He couldn't stand the idea that this new girl, a complete outsider, had managed to embarrass him not once, but twice. His reputation as the king of Willow Creek High was at stake, and he wasn't about to let anyone tarnish it. For days, Marcus had been plotting his revenge. He didn't want to make another scene in front of everyone. That would only give Amara more opportunities to humiliate him. Instead, he decided to strike when no one was watching. After school, he and his gang waited near the bike racks, knowing Ethan always left campus around that time. Their plan was simple: ambush Ethan, scare him into submission, and send a clear message to Amara that she wasn't untouchable. But what Marcus didn't know was that Amara had anticipated his retaliation. She had spent the past week strategizing with her growing circle of allies, preparing for the worst-case scenario. When Ethan texted her during last period to say he'd be staying late to finish a project, Amara immediately grew suspicious. Something felt off. After class, she told Ethan to wait for her by the library and then headed straight for the bike racks. Sure enough, Marcus and his crew were already there, lurking in the shadows. They spotted Ethan walking toward them, his head down as usual. Marcus stepped forward, blocking his path. Well, well, Marcus sneered, cracking his knuckles. Look who we have here. Ethan froze, panic flashing across his face. I didn't do anything, he stammered, taking a step back. Not yet, Marcus replied coldly. But maybe you'll learn your lesson today. Before Marcus could take another step, Amara appeared behind him, her phone held high in one hand. "Leave him alone," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Marcus spun around, startled. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. "What does it look like?" Amara shot back, her tone icy. "I'm making sure you don't hurt anyone else." Marcus glared at her, clearly caught off guard. "You think you're so smart, huh? Always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." "No," Amara corrected him. "I think you're weak. Real strength isn't about picking on people smaller than you. It's about standing up for yourself without hiding behind your friends." Marcus's face turned red with anger. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," Amara countered, unfazed. "And if you try anything right now, everyone will see exactly who you really are." She waved her phone slightly, reminding him it was recording. For a moment, Marcus hesitated. He glanced at his gang, silently seeking their support, but they looked uneasy. None of them wanted to get caught on camera, or worse, reported to the principal. Sensing their hesitation, Marcus clenched his fists, torn between lashing out and backing down. "You're playing a dangerous game, new girl," Marcus growled, stepping closer to her. "Don't think I won't forget this." "I'm not afraid of you," Amara replied calmly. "Go ahead, show everyone who you really are." Her words hit a nerve. Marcus faltered, his bravado crumbling under the weight of her unwavering confidence. Without saying another word, he turned and stormed off, his gang trailing behind him like lost puppies. The confrontation was over almost as quickly as it began. Once Marcus and his crew were gone, Ethan rushed to Amara's side. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I'm fine," Amara assured him, lowering her phone. "Are you okay?" Ethan nodded, though his hands were still shaking. "How did you know they'd be here?" "I didn't," Amara admitted. "But I figured Marcus wouldn't let things go that easily. I just prepared for the worst." Ethan stared at her in awe. "Thank you. Again." Amara smiled softly. "You don't have to keep thanking me, Ethan. That's what friends do. They stick together." Later that evening, Amara uploaded the video of the confrontation to social media. Within hours, it went viral. Students from Willow Creek High shared it across platforms, tagging friends and adding comments like, "Finally, someone stood up to Marcus, and this is what real courage looks like." Teachers and parents soon caught wind of the incident, demanding action from the school administration. By Friday morning, Principal Dawson called an emergency assembly. Standing at the podium, she addressed the entire student body, her expression stern. "Bullying has no place at Willow Creek High," she declared. "We pride ourselves on fostering a safe and respectful environment for all students, and recent events have shown us that we must do better." She announced that Marcus and his gang had been suspended indefinitely pending further investigation. In addition, the school would implement mandatory anti-bullying workshops for every grade level, starting next week. While some students cheered, others sat quietly, reflecting on how their silence had allowed such behavior to persist. Amara watched the announcement unfold from the back of the auditorium, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. It wasn't perfect. She knew suspending Marcus wouldn't magically erase years of toxic behavior. But it was a start. Change took time, and she was willing to fight for it. After the assembly, Ethan approached Amara, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I can't believe you did all of this," he said. "You've changed everything." "I didn't do it alone," Amara reminded him. "It was everyone who stood up and spoke out. We're stronger together." Ethan nodded, a newfound determination in his posture. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful about the future, not just for himself, but for the entire school. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. As they walked out of the auditorium together, Amara glanced at Ethan and smiled. Despite the challenges they'd faced, she couldn't help but feel proud of what they'd accomplished. But deep down, she knew their journey was far from over. There would always be obstacles, setbacks, and moments of doubt. Yet, as long as They kept fighting for justice, for kindness, for each other. They could overcome anything. And somewhere along the way, something unexpected began to blossom between them. What started as friendship was slowly turning into something deeper, something neither of them had anticipated. But for now, they focused on the present, cherishing the small victories and looking forward to brighter days ahead. The weeks following Marcus's suspension marked a noticeable shift at Willow Creek High. The hallways, once filled with tension and fear, now buzzed with cautious optimism. Students who had previously avoided eye contact or hurried past the Bullies' usual hangouts began walking with their heads held higher. Conversations that were once whispered behind closed doors now took place openly in classrooms and cafeterias. For the first time in years, there was hope. A fragile but powerful sense that things could change. Amara noticed the transformation almost immediately. Teachers seemed more approachable, cracking smiles during lessons instead of rushing through lectures to avoid disruptions. Even the quieter students, those who had always faded into the background, started speaking up more often. Ethan, in particular, became bolder. He no longer hesitated to raise his hand in class or join group discussions. His artwork, which he had kept hidden for so long, began appearing on bulletin boards around school, earning compliments from classmates and teachers alike. But perhaps the biggest change was in Ethan himself. With each passing day, he grew more confident, not just in how he carried himself, but also in how he interacted with others. Amara played a huge role in this transformation. She continued to encourage him, reminding him of his worth whenever self-doubt crept in. "You're stronger than you think," she would say. "Don't let anyone make you forget that." Ethan believed her not because she told him so, but because she showed him. Every time someone mocked his drawings or rolled their eyes at his quiet demeanor, Amara stepped in, deflecting insults with sharp wit or simply standing beside him as a shield. Her presence gave him courage, teaching him that strength wasn't about fighting back but about refusing to be diminished by negativity. One afternoon after art club ended, Ethan stayed behind to clean up while Amara waited outside. As she leaned against the wall scrolling through her phone, a girl named Mia approached her. Mia was one of the few students who had initially supported Amara during her confrontation with Marcus, offering to record incidents on her phone if needed. Though they weren't close friends, Mia admired Amara's bravery and wanted to thank her personally. "Hey, Amara," Mia said nervously, twisting a strand of her blonde hair between her fingers. "Can I talk to you for a second?" "Sure," Amara replied, putting her phone away. "What's up?" "I just wanted to say thanks," Mia admitted, glancing down at her shoes. "For everything you've done. Before you came here, it felt like no one cared about what Marcus and his crew were doing. But now, things feel different. Like we can actually stand up for ourselves without being scared." Amara smiled warmly. "You don't have to thank me. It's not just me, it's all of us. We're making this change together." Mia nodded, looking relieved. "Still, I don't think anyone else would have had the guts to do what you did. You're kind of amazing, you know that?" Amara laughed softly. "I'm just trying to do what's right. That's all." As Mia walked away, Amara couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since her first day at Willow Creek. Back then, she'd been an outsider, unsure of where she fit in. Now she was part of something bigger, a movement toward kindness, unity, and respect. And though she knew challenges still lay ahead, she felt hopeful about the future. Meanwhile, Ethan emerged from the art room, holding a folder filled with sketches. He looked surprised to see Amara waiting for him. "You didn't have to stay," he said shyly. "Of course I did," Amara replied, falling into step beside him. "Besides, I wanted to see your latest masterpiece." Ethan blushed, clutching the folder tighter. "It's nothing special." "Let me decide that," Amara teased, reaching for the folder. Laughing, Ethan handed it over, watching anxiously as she flipped through the pages. Inside were detailed pencil drawings of landscapes, animals, and even portraits of their classmates. Each piece was unique, capturing emotions and details most people wouldn't notice. "These are incredible," Amara said sincerely, stopping at a sketch of two figures sitting under a tree, one tall, one shorter. "Is this us?" Ethan's face turned bright red. "Maybe," It's beautiful, Amara said, smiling at him. You should really show these to Miss Carter. She might let you display them in the art show next month. Ethan hesitated, clearly tempted but still unsure. What if people don't like them? They will, Amara assured him. And even if they don't, who cares? Art isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about expressing yourself. Don't let fear stop you from sharing your gift. Ethan thought about her words, nodding slowly. Okay, I'll think about it. That's my guy, Amara said, nudging him playfully. They both laughed, the sound echoing down the empty hallway. Later that week, the anti-bullying workshops began. Led by a guest speaker named Mr. Thompson, a former educator turned motivational coach, the sessions focused on empathy, communication, and conflict resolution. At first, many students groaned, assuming the workshops would be boring or pointless. But Mr. Thompson quickly proved them wrong. Using real-life stories and interactive activities, he challenged students to put themselves in others' shoes. During one exercise, he asked volunteers to pair up and share personal struggles they had faced, whether related to bullying, family issues, or academic pressure. To everyone's surprise, some of the toughest-looking kids opened up, revealing vulnerabilities they had never shared before. By the end of the workshop, several students approached Amara to thank her again, not just for standing up to Marcus, but for inspiring them to take the workshop seriously. One boy, Jake, admitted that he used to follow Marcus's lead out of fear, but now realized how harmful his actions had been. I want to do better, he told her earnestly. Can you help me? Amara nodded, touched by his honesty. We all mess up sometimes. What matters is learning from our mistakes and choosing to grow. You've already taken the first step. As October rolled around, preparations for the annual Fall Festival began. Posters advertising pumpkin carving contests, hay rides, and live music performances covered every bulletin board in sight. Excitement filled the air, and for the first time in years, everyone seemed eager to participate, including Ethan. On a crisp Friday afternoon, Amara found Ethan sketching in his notebook during study hall. Curious, she peered over his shoulder. What are you working on? She asked. A poster design for the festival, Ethan replied, showing her the unfinished drawing. It featured a glowing jack-o'-lantern surrounded by autumn leaves with bold lettering inviting students to attend. This is awesome, Amara exclaimed. You should totally submit it. Really? Ethan asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Yes, really, Amara insisted. Trust me, you've got this. Encouraged by her enthusiasm, Ethan submitted his design the next day. To his astonishment, it was chosen as the official poster for the festival. When the announcement was made over the intercom, the entire class erupted in applause. Ethan sat frozen in his seat, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Amara leaned over and whispered, See? I told you. That evening, as Amara walked home, she reflected on how far Ethan and the entire school had come. Standing up to Marcus hadn't just stopped the bullying. It had sparked a ripple effect, encouraging others to embrace kindness and courage. Change wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't instant. But it was happening. Slowly, but surely, Willow Creek High was becoming a place where everyone belonged. And somewhere along the way, Amara realized something else. Her feelings for Ethan had deepened. What started as admiration for his resilience had blossomed into something more. A quiet affection she couldn't ignore. But for now, she kept it to herself, focusing instead on supporting him as he found his footing. Little did she know Ethan felt the same way. As he stared at the poster hanging proudly in the hallway, he thought about how much Amara had changed his life. She wasn't just his friend anymore. She was his anchor, his inspiration, and maybe something even more. The Fall Festival arrived on a crisp Saturday evening, transforming Willow Creek High into a lively celebration of autumn. Strings of fairy lights illuminated the courtyard, casting a warm glow over rows of food stalls and game booths. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of caramel apples. Students wandered around in groups, their faces painted with excitement as they enjoyed the festivities. For many, It was the first time in years they felt truly free to have fun without fear of being mocked or bullied. Amara stood near the pumpkin carving station, supervising a group of younger students as they worked on their creations. She laughed, as one boy accidentally smeared orange paint across his cheek, earning giggles from his friends. Watching them reminded her of why she had fought so hard, to create a space where everyone could feel safe and happy. Across the courtyard, Ethan was setting up a display table for his artwork. Dozens of his sketches were pinned to a corkboard, arranged carefully to showcase his talent. Passers-by stopped to admire the pieces, complimenting him on his skill and creativity. At first, Ethan felt nervous about being the center of attention, but the positive feedback boosted his confidence. He smiled shyly as people praised his work, occasionally glancing toward Amara, who gave him an encouraging thumbs up from afar. As the night wore on, Amara decided to take a break and explore the festival herself. She wandered through the crowd, marveling at how different everything felt compared to just a few weeks ago. Gone were the tense silences and wary glances. Instead, there was genuine joy in the air. Even former followers of Marcus, like Jake, were participating enthusiastically, helping run games and handing out prizes. It was proof that change was possible, if people were willing to try. Eventually, Amara found her way to Ethan's booth. "Hey, artist," she teased, leaning against the edge of the table. "Looks like you're getting famous." Ethan chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "I wouldn't say that." "Well, I would," Amara said firmly. "You deserve every bit of praise you're getting. Seriously, Ethan, this is amazing." Her words made his cheeks flush, but he couldn't hide the pride in his eyes. "Thanks to you," he said softly. "If you hadn't pushed me to share my art, none of this would have happened." Amara shook her head. "Nope. This is all you. I just reminded you what you already knew. You're incredible." For a moment they locked eyes, neither speaking. There was something unspoken between them, a connection that had been growing stronger with each passing day. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Do you want to grab some hot chocolate? My treat." Amara grinned. "Now, that sounds like a plan." They walked side by side to the refreshment stand, weaving through the bustling crowd. As they waited, in line, Ethan hesitated before blurting out, "Amara, can I ask you something?" "Of course," she replied, turning to face him. "What is it?" He swallowed hard, clearly nervous. "I know we haven't known each other for very long, but you've changed my life. You made me believe in myself when I didn't think anyone else ever would. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I really like spending time with you, more than just friends kind of time." Amara blinked, caught off guard by his confession. But then she smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. "Ethan, I feel the same way. You're one of the bravest, kindest people I've ever met, and honestly, I can't imagine going through all of this without you." Relief washed over Ethan's face, followed by a shy smile. "So, does that mean we're—" "Yeah," Amara said, laughing softly. "I think it does." Without thinking, Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. Together, they returned to the festival, sipping hot chocolate and sharing stories under the twinkling lights. For the first time in a long while, both of them felt completely content. Later that night, as fireworks lit up the sky above the school, Amara and Ethan sat together on a bench, watching the colorful bursts reflect off the lake nearby. The noise of the festival faded into the background, leaving only the sound of their quiet conversation. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "I never imagined things could change like this. I always thought I'd just have to deal with being bullied forever." "And now?" Amara prompted. "Now I know better," Ethan replied, smiling at her. "Because of you. You showed me that standing up for yourself and others is worth it, even when it's scary. And you proved that. Kindness can win no matter how impossible it seems." Amara squeezed his hand gently. "We did it together, remember? None of this would have happened without you finding the courage to trust me, and yourself." Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting back to the fireworks. Do you think it'll last? The change, I mean. I hope so, Amara admitted. But even if things get tough again, we'll handle it. As long as we stick together, we can face anything. Ethan turned to look at her, his expression softening. Promise? Promise, Amara said, meeting his gaze. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the festival and the warmth of their newfound relationship, they both knew they had found something rare and precious. A partnership built on trust, resilience, and love. Their journey wasn't perfect, and challenges would undoubtedly arise, but they were ready to face them head-on. As the final firework exploded in a shower of gold, Ethan leaned in and kissed Amara lightly on the cheek. She blushed, laughing softly as she rested her head on his shoulder. Together they watched the stars shimmer above Willow Creek, knowing their story was just beginning. And though the road ahead might twist and turn, one thing was certain. They would walk it side by side, proving that even in the darkest times, light and love could shine through.